Welcome to Trauma Bay. People grow up being told what to believe, not shown, not invited to question, just told. They're handed a book, a set of rules, a list of things they must not question. And from the moment they begin to think, they're warned that doubting these ideas is dangerous, that asking too many questions makes you the problem, that your mind is somehow wrong for. This isn't about individual people trying to find meaning. It's about the systems that have been constructed and protected for so long that no one's allowed to admit they don't make sense. Religion sells answers to questions that don't have clear answers, and it charges with guilt, fear, and obedience. Start with the concept of eternal punishment. What kind of system needs to scare people with infinite torture to keep them loyal? Think about that. If someone says they love you but also says they'll hurt you forever if you stop loving them back, we all recognize that as abuse. But when religion does it, it's dressed up as divine justice. That's not justice. That's emotional blackmail. Religion talks about love, peace, forgiveness, but the scriptures often say something else. In many religious texts, you'll find stories of slaughter, genocide, commands to kill non-believers, to stone people for things like working on a certain day, or loving the wrong person. And if anyone points that out, defenders say it's out of context. But how many times can that excuse be used before you admit the book contradicts itself? Then there's the promise of paradise, a perfect world after death. That lie is one of the most powerful tools ever created. It makes people stop caring about fixing this world. Why invest in justice, in science, in compassion, when you've been told that this life is just a test? When the real reward is waiting somewhere else, after you die? That lie has delayed progress for generations. People wait for a miracle instead of becoming one. They pray instead of act. They obey instead of think. It tells the poor that their suffering is noble, that their hunger is part of a grand design, that they'll be rewarded later. But where's the justice in letting children starve while praising the rich for giving them scraps? Where's the virtue in telling someone to accept their suffering because God has a plan? And what is that plan? If religion claimed uncertainty, if it said, "We don't know," there would be honesty in that. But it doesn't. It insists. It declares. It tells you that it knows what God wants, what's good and what's evil, who's going to hell and who's not. And somehow, the answers always match the local culture, the local biases, the politics of the time. Isn't that convenient? Religion evolves, not because its God changes, but because people stop tolerating certain ideas. Slavery was once justified with religion. Misogyny still is. Homophobia still is. Every time the world moves forward, religion catches up. Late. It doesn't lead change. It resists it. And when it finally adapts, it acts like it always believed in equality, in compassion. But history says otherwise. Look at the role of religion in science. Galileo was condemned for saying the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. Darwin's ideas were fought not because they were false, but because they threatened old beliefs. Even now, in many parts of the world, evolution isn't taught, not because of evidence, but because it challenges religious stories. And education. In places where religion controls schools, critical thinking dies. Children are taught what to think, not how to think. They're told myths as facts, told that questioning is sinful, but any idea that fears questions probably isn't strong enough to survive them. There's a reason religious belief correlates inversely with education in many studies. As access to knowledge increases, certainty in dogma decreases. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when people are allowed to explore reality on their own. Another lie is that religion is necessary for morality, that without a divine rule book, people would descend into chaos. But think about your own life. When you choose kindness, is it because you fear punishment? Or because empathy makes sense? Do you help someone because a verse told you to, or because you're human? Most of us wouldn't hurt others just because we could. And if the only thing stopping someone from doing evil is the threat of hell, that says more about them than it does about morality. Morality isn't born from fear. It comes from understanding suffering, from living with others, from seeing the consequences of your actions. Religion claims to provide purpose. But purpose isn't something you're given. It's something you create. You find it in connection, in curiosity, in creativity, in building things that last. Religion offers prefabricated meaning. Follow this path, say these prayers, perform these rituals, and you'll be fulfilled. But it doesn't work for everyone. And when it doesn't, people are told they're broken, that their doubt is a defect. But it's not. Doubt is a sign of thinking, of caring enough to seek something real. Religious institutions often amass wealth while preaching humility. They build golden temples while preaching sacrifice. They accumulate political power while claiming to serve the poor. There are billions of dollars locked in religious tax exemptions, while followers are told to give more, donate more, sacrifice more. How many hospitals could that money fund? How many lives could it save? And when abuse is exposed, abuse of children, of women, of vulnerable people, it's often covered up to protect the image of the church, the mosque, the temple. Loyalty to the institution comes before justice, and still, people defend it. Out of fear, out of habit, out of the belief that it's somehow sacred. But if a system protects predators and silences victims, it has no moral authority. Every generation inherits these beliefs from the last, without consent. A child is born and baptized. Before they can read, they're taught to bow, to pray, to confess. The freedom to choose is taken before it even begins. And by the time they're old enough to question, they're already made to feel guilty for doing so. That's not faith, that's indoctrination. You don't need religion to be in awe of life, to feel wonder when looking at the stars, or empathy when holding someone's hand. You don't need it to feel the mystery of existence, or to love without condition. These things are human. They come from experience, not commandments. The idea that a book written by men thousands of years ago has all the answers is not wisdom. It's arrogance, especially when those answers divide people, create wars, excuse violence, and punish difference. You can search for meaning without kneeling to a myth. You can be kind without the threat of hell. You can be honest without confessing to a priest. You can live fully without the promise of a reward after death. And if something is true, it should be able to withstand scrutiny. It should welcome questions, not fear them. Truth doesn't need protection. Only lies do. Religion tells people they're born sinful, that they need saving, that they're broken unless they follow a very specific path. But you're not broken for thinking, for asking, for refusing to accept ancient answers to modern questions. There's courage in doubt, there's honesty in uncertainty, and there's power in building a life based on reality, not on fear, not on guilt, not on lies, just truth, wherever it leads.